Vanessa's hands were still trembling when she heard the knock on her apartment door at exactly 7 in the morning. She had been packing, running, again. But when she looked through the peephole, her heart stopped completely because standing there was Kang Jae-won, the same man whose bed she had fled from 6 hours ago, the same man whose tattooed chest she had traced with her fingers in the darkness, the same man who controlled half of Seoul's underground empire. And in his hand, held up like a verdict, was a pregnancy test. Her pregnancy test. The one she had thrown in the trash at his penthouse before running for her life. He smiled, cold and dangerous, and said the words that would change everything. "You left something behind, sweetheart. Now open this door, or I'll break it down and everyone in this building will know exactly what you did with me last night." If you're new here and you love stories filled with drama, romance, and unexpected twists, hit that subscribe button and stay with me till the end, because this story is about to take you on a wild ride. Vanessa's fingers hesitated on the lock. Her mind was screaming at her to climb out the window, to disappear like she always did when things got too complicated. But something in his voice, something beneath the threat, made her pause. She had heard that voice whisper her name in the darkness. She had heard it break when he told her things she was certain no one else knew. She unlocked the door. Jae-won stepped inside like he owned the place, his eyes immediately scanning every corner of her small studio apartment. The contrast between him and her world was almost laughable. He was all sharp lines and expensive cologne. She was cardboard boxes and a mattress on the floor. But his gaze found hers and held it, and in that moment, none of it mattered. "You ran," he said, his voice dropping low. "Why?" Vanessa folded her arms across her chest, trying to create some barrier between them. "You know why. I know who you are, Jae-won. I'm not stupid. The tattoos, the men following you everywhere, the way everyone at that party looked at you like you could end their lives with a word. I did my research after I left. After we..." Yes, she cut him off, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "After that. I Googled you. Do you know how many articles came up? How many photos of you looking like death itself at business meetings that definitely weren't about regular business?" Jae-won's lips twitched, almost like he wanted to smile. "You Googled me? That's what you're focusing on right now? I find it amusing. Most people who Google me end up running much farther than across the city. Well, I was working on it before you showed up." Vanessa threw her hands up in frustration. "I was literally packing my bags. I had a plan. Take the first bus to Busan. Disappear. Start over. Again." Jae-won held up the pregnancy test, and all the humor drained from the room. "Then explain this." Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. "I was late. I was panicking. It's probably nothing. I took that test before we even, and I didn't check the results. I just threw it away, and then you found me at the party, and everything happened so fast, and I wasn't thinking, and it's positive." The word hung in the air between them like a bomb waiting to explode. Vanessa's knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of her small kitchen counter to steady herself. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be happening. She was a cleaner at the Grand Seoul Hotel. She had worked there for 3 years, invisible to the wealthy guests who came and went. She had only been at that private party because she had been assigned to clean up afterward. She wasn't supposed to be seen. She definitely wasn't supposed to catch the eye of the most dangerous man in the room. "That's not, we only..." She stammered, her mind refusing to form complete sentences. "Not mine," Jae-won said, his jaw tightening visibly. "The test is from before." "Which means someone else." "Who?" The accusation in his voice made something snap inside Vanessa. All the fear, all the confusion, all the chaos of the past 12 hours crystallized into pure, burning anger. "That's none of your business. Last night was a mistake. A crazy, impossible mistake that never should have happened. You should leave." "I don't think so." Jae-won moved closer, and Vanessa backed up until she hit the wall. He didn't touch her, but he caged her in with his arms, his face inches from hers. This close, she could see the small scar on his left eyebrow, the flecks of gold in his dark eyes that she had noticed in the moonlight streaming through his bedroom window. She could smell him, that intoxicating mixture of cedar and something darker that had made her lose her mind the night before. "That child," he said slowly, each word deliberate and heavy, Whoever the father is, you're carrying it while my enemies are circling. I touched you, Vanessa. I let you see my face, my home, my real name. Do you understand what that means in my world? I won't tell anyone anything. I don't even know anything worth telling. You won't have the chance. My rivals already know someone left my penthouse at 1 in the morning. They're already tracking you. By tonight, they'll know your name, your address, your blood type, and the name of your childhood pet. Vanessa's heart hammered against her ribs. You're lying. You're just trying to scare me into. Into what? Into coming with me? Into letting me protect you. Jaewon's expression shifted, something vulnerable cracking through the cold facade. I'm not lying, Vanessa. I've already dealt with 2 surveillance teams this morning. They were parked outside this building when I arrived. If I hadn't intercepted them, you'd already be in the back of a van heading to people who would do unspeakable things just to hurt me. Why would anyone want to hurt you through me? I'm nobody to you. We spent 1 night together. 1 stupid, reckless night. 1 night is enough in my world. 1 touch is enough. 1 photograph, 1 whisper, 1 rumor. That's all it takes for someone to become a target. Jaewon's voice dropped even lower. And whether you like it or not, you became my target the moment I couldn't look away from you at that party. Vanessa felt tears prick her eyes. This was insane. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem was a rude guest who had complained about the thread count of his sheets. Now she was pregnant, apparently marked by the Korean Mafia, and trapped between a wall and a man who made her feel things she had sworn never to feel again. What do you want from me? She whispered. Jaewon pulled back slightly, reaching into his jacket pocket. He produced a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a ring that sparkled with more diamonds than Vanessa had ever seen in her life. The center stone was enormous, surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught the morning light and threw rainbows across her shabby walls. I want you to marry me. Vanessa blinked. Then she blinked again. Then she burst out laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the slightly unhinged laugh of someone who had been pushed past their breaking point. I'm sorry, she gasped between laughs. Did you just propose to me? With a pregnancy test in one hand and a ring in the other? In my apartment that doesn't even have a working heater? After threatening to break down my door. Jaewon watched her laugh with an expression that was equal parts confused and fascinated. Is something funny? Everything. Everything is funny. This is the most insane thing that has ever happened to me, and I once got chased by a goat through a Nigerian market when I was 12. Vanessa wiped tears from her eyes, her laughter slowly dying. You're insane. You're actually clinically insane. Probably, Jaewon agreed, completely unbothered. But this is the only way. My organization has rules. My enemies have limits, even in their cruelty. A wife is protected by codes that a random woman is not. If you're my wife, touching you becomes an act of war. It buys you safety. It buys your child safety. It's not your child. Something flickered in Jaewon's eyes. I know. I don't care. That stopped Vanessa cold. Her laughter died completely. What? The father, Jaewon said, his voice carefully controlled. Where is he? Vanessa looked away, the old wound tearing open fresh. He's dead. He died 3 months ago. Car accident. We weren't together anymore, but we had one night after his father's funeral and then, this. She pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, grief and confusion tangling together. I hadn't even fully processed that I was pregnant. I hadn't even decided what I was going to do. The test in your bathroom was the first time I even confirmed it. So the child has no father, Jaewon said quietly. And you have no protection. And, because of what happened between us, you have a target on your back that will never go away. Not unless you become untouchable. Not unless you become mine. This is crazy. You don't know me. We spent 1 night together. 1 night of madness. It was the most honest night of my life. Vanessa's breath caught. She remembered it now, the way he had held her, the way he had whispered secrets into her skin. He had told her about his mother, murdered when he was 17. He had told her about the empire he had built from blood and betrayal, the empire he hated but couldn't escape. He had been raw in a way that made her forget who he was and what he was capable of. That doesn't mean you should marry me, she managed. Maybe not. But I'm going to anyway. The only question is whether you walk out that door with me willingly or whether I carry you. You wouldn't dare. Try me. They stared at each other, a battle of wills playing out in the small space between them. Vanessa wanted to be angry. She wanted to scream and fight and demand her freedom. But there was something in his eyes that wasn't possession. It was desperation. It was loneliness. It was the same thing she saw in the mirror every morning. If I say yes, she said slowly, what happens to me? To my life? My job, my apartment, You'll have a new life. A better one. I'll provide everything you need. You'll want for nothing. I'll be a prisoner. You'll be protected. There's a difference. Is there? Jaewon's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I know you don't trust me. I know I'm asking the impossible. But I'm also offering you something real. A chance. A future. Safety for you and your child. All I ask is that you give me 1 year. 1 year as my wife. If after that time you want to leave, I'll let you go. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere my enemies will never find you. I'll make sure you and your child never want for anything. And if I don't want to leave? The question escaped before Vanessa could stop it, and she saw the flash of surprise in Jaewon's eyes, followed by something that looked dangerously like hope. Then you stay, he said simply. As my wife. For real. Forever. Before you continue, drop a comment telling me what you think Vanessa should do. Should she marry him or run? And if you haven't already, hit that like button. Vanessa closed her eyes, her mind racing through every possible outcome. She thought about her empty bank account, her dead-end job, the life she had been barely surviving. She thought about the child growing inside her, the child who deserved better than she could give on a cleaner salary. She thought about the way Jaewon's hands had trembled when he touched her face in the darkness, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. 1 year, she said finally, opening her eyes. And you don't touch me unless I ask. You don't control me. You don't treat me like property. I may be your wife on paper, but I make my own choices. Jaewon nodded slowly. Agreed. But in public, you play the part. You hold my hand. You smile at my side. You let the world believe this is real. Why does the world need to believe it? Because if they don't, the protection means nothing. My enemies will test us, Vanessa. They'll look for cracks. The moment they sense this is fake, they'll strike. Vanessa took a shaky breath and held out her hand. Then I guess we'd better be convincing. Jaewon slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Too perfectly. As if it had been made for her. She looked up at him suspiciously. How did you know my ring size? I have resources. That's creepy. That's efficient. It's creepy efficient. Despite everything, Jaewon's lips curved into what might have been a genuine smile. It transformed his face, making him look younger, almost boyish. Vanessa found herself staring, caught off guard by how handsome he was when he wasn't being terrifying. My driver is downstairs, he said, the smile fading back into business mode. We need to move quickly. Pack only what you can't leave behind. Everything else can be replaced. Vanessa looked around her small apartment at the few possessions she had accumulated over the years. The photograph of her mother in its cracked frame. The small wooden figurine her grandmother had given her before she passed. The journal she had been writing in since she was 16, filled with dreams and fears and everything in between. She grabbed them all, stuffing them into a small bag, and when she turned back, Jaewon was watching her with something like understanding. That's all, he asked quietly. I've learned to travel light. It makes running easier. You won't have to run anymore. We'll see about that. The car that waited outside was sleek and black, with tinted windows that hid everything inside from the world. Jaewon opened the door for her, a surprisingly gentlemanly gesture that made Vanessa raise an eyebrow. What? He asked. Nothing. Just didn't expect the Mafia boss to have manners. I had a mother. She raised me right before. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Vanessa slid into leather seats softer than anything she had ever felt, and Jaewon followed, settling beside her as the car pulled away from her old life. There are clothes waiting at the house, he said, glancing at her worn jeans and old sweater. And everything else you need. The wedding will be this afternoon. This afternoon? That's in hours. I can't get married in hours. I don't have a dress, I don't have flowers, I don't have. You'll have everything. I've already arranged it all. When? When did you have time to arrange a wedding? You were too busy stalking me and intercepting surveillance teams. I'm very good at multitasking. Vanessa stared at him, completely at a loss for words. Then she started laughing again, and this time, it was closer to genuine amusement. You're ridiculous, she said. You know that, right? Absolutely ridiculous. I've been called worse. I believe it. They rode in silence for a while, the city blurring past the windows. Vanessa's hand drifted to her stomach, still flat, still showing no signs of the life growing inside. She wondered what kind of world she was bringing this child into. A world of danger and power, of enemies and alliances. A world where marriage proposals came with threats and protection came with a price. You're thinking too loud, Jae-won said. How can you tell? You get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're worried. You had it last night too. Vanessa's cheeks heated. What else did you notice last night? Everything. His voice was low, intimate, and despite herself, Vanessa felt a shiver run down her spine. I noticed everything about you, Vanessa. The way you laugh with your whole body. The way you bite your lip when you're nervous. The way you say my name like it's something worth saying. Jae-won. See? Just like that. She looked away, flustered, and heard him chuckle softly. It was a nice sound, she realized. Warm and unexpected from someone so cold on the surface. The penthouse he brought her to was the same one she had fled the night before, but in daylight, it was even more stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seoul skyline, the city sprawling endlessly in every direction. Art that belonged in museums hung on the walls. She recognized a piece that had been featured in a documentary she'd watched once, valued at several $1 million. And everywhere she looked, there were small touches of beauty that seemed at odds with the man's reputation. Fresh flowers on the table. Books stacked on the shelves with creased spines, clearly read and reread. A piano in the corner of the living room, sheet music still open on the stand. You play? She asked, gesturing to the piano. When I need to think. It helps clear my head. Will you play for me sometime? Jae-won looked at her, something soft flickering in his eyes. If you want. I want. He nodded once, then gestured toward a hallway. The bedroom is through there. The stylist will arrive in an hour to prepare you for the ceremony. I have business to attend to, but I'll be back before it's time. Business, Vanessa repeated. That's what you call it. Jae-won turned to face her, his expression unreadable. I won't pretend to be something I'm not, Vanessa. I've done terrible things. I've made choices that keep me awake at night. But everything I do now, I do to protect what's mine. And as of this morning, that includes you. He left before she could respond, and Vanessa found herself alone in the vast penthouse, surrounded by luxury she couldn't have imagined, bound to a man she barely knew, carrying a child that would grow up in a world of shadows and secrets. She walked to the window and pressed her hand against the glass, watching the city stretch out below her. Somewhere down there, her old life was already fading. Somewhere down there, the people hunting her were regrouping, planning their next move. And somewhere deep inside her, a small, reckless part of her was wondering if Kang Jae-won might actually be worth the danger. Get it together, Vanessa, she muttered to herself. You're marrying a mafia boss. This is not a romance novel. This is survival. But even as she said it, she touched the ring on her finger and felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with survival at all. The stylist arrived exactly on time, a woman named Min-ji who moved with the efficiency of someone who had dressed countless women for high-stakes events. She didn't ask questions. She didn't make small talk. She simply presented Vanessa with a gown of ivory silk and began working on her hair and makeup with silent precision. Have you worked for him long? Vanessa asked, trying to break the silence. 10 years, Min-ji replied, her hands never pausing in their work. Since he took over the organization. And what do you think of him? Min-ji met her eyes in the mirror. I think he's the most dangerous man in Seoul. I also think he's the loneliest. Vanessa didn't know what to say to that, so she stayed quiet and let Min-ji work her magic. By the time she was finished, Vanessa barely recognized herself in the mirror. The gown hugged her curves in all the right places, the silk cascading to the floor like water. Her dark skin glowed against the pale fabric, her eyes lined with gold that made them look almost luminous. Her natural hair had been styled into an elegant updo, adorned with tiny pearl pins that caught the light. She looked like someone who belonged in this world. Someone who had always belonged. "Beautiful," came Jaewon's voice from the doorway. Vanessa turned to find him watching her, and her heart stuttered at the sight of him. He wore a traditional Korean wedding hanbok, modified with modern tailoring that made him look like a king from another era. The deep burgundy fabric brought out the warmth in his skin, and his hair was pushed back from his face, revealing the sharp lines of his jaw. He looked powerful and ancient and somehow impossibly nervous. "You clean up well," she managed, trying to sound casual despite her racing heart. Jaewon crossed the room and took her hands in his. His thumbs traced circles on her palms, and the touch sent shivers down her spine. "I mean it, Vanessa. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You're just saying that because you're about to marry me. I'm saying it because it's true. I would say it even if you were wearing those old jeans and that sweater with the hole in the sleeve." "You noticed the hole?" "I notice everything about you. I told you that already." Minji cleared her throat discreetly. "The ceremony will begin in 15 minutes, sir." Jaewon nodded, but his eyes never left Vanessa's face. "Before we do this, I need you to understand something. Once we're married, there's no going back. My world will claim you. My enemies will know your face. Even if we divorce after a year, you'll never truly be free of what this means. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to be honest. You deserve that much." Vanessa looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. The warning was real. The danger was real. But so was the strange, unexpected connection between them. The pull that had drawn her to him at that party, the feeling that she had known him long before they ever met. "I'm not scared," she said, and she was surprised to find that it was true. "Let's get married." The ceremony took place in a small chapel hidden within Jaewon's compound, a building she hadn't even known existed. The space was intimate and elegant, lit by hundreds of candles that cast a warm glow over everything. White roses filled every corner, their scent sweet and heavy in the air. The officiant was an elderly man who looked at them with knowing eyes, as if he had performed many such ceremonies for people in their situation. The witnesses were two of Jaewon's men, silent and stoic, standing against the walls like statues. The vows were simple, spoken in Korean and then repeated in English for Vanessa's benefit. She promised to honor and cherish, to stand by his side, to be his partner in all things. He promised the same, his voice steady and sure, his eyes never leaving hers. And when he slid the wedding band onto her finger, joining the engagement ring that already sat there, Vanessa felt something shift inside her. Something that felt terrifyingly like hope. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced. Jaewon leaned in, and for a moment, Vanessa thought he would simply brush his lips against hers, a performance for their audience. But then his hand cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with unbearable tenderness, and when he kissed her, it was nothing like a performance. It was hunger and promise and something darker that made her knees weak. She found herself gripping the front of his hanbok, pulling him closer, forgetting entirely that they had an audience. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were blazing with an intensity that stole her breath. "My wife," he murmured, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "Mine." The reception was held in a private dining room of the penthouse, decorated with the same elegant taste as the chapel. Jaewon's closest allies attended, men and women who looked at Vanessa with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. She smiled and nodded and played the part of the blushing bride, but inside, she was cataloging every face, every name, every subtle power dynamic in the room. One woman in particular caught her attention. She was tall and elegant, dressed in a red gown that left little to the imagination, and she watched Jaewon with a possessiveness that made Vanessa's hackles rise. The woman's eyes followed every move he made, her lips pressed into a thin line of barely concealed displeasure. "That's Soo-yeon," Jaewon murmured in her ear, following her gaze. "My second in command." And until recently, she believed she would be the one wearing your ring. Vanessa felt a chill run down her spine. "She was your lover?" "Once. A long time ago. It meant nothing." "She doesn't look like it meant nothing. Soo-yeon is ambitious. She saw marriage to me as a path to power. She'll need to adjust her expectations." And if she doesn't want to adjust? Jaewon's arm tightened around her waist. Then she'll learn the hard way that some things are not negotiable. As if sensing they were discussing her, Soo-yeon chose that moment to approach. Her smile was sharp as glass, her eyes cold as they swept over Vanessa's gown, her hair, her ring. "Congratulations," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I have to admit, I was surprised when Jaewon announced his engagement. He's always been so particular about his companions. I never imagined he'd choose someone so unexpected. "People are full of surprises," Vanessa replied, keeping her voice steady despite the urge to slap the smug expression off the woman's face. "Jaewon certainly surprised me." "I'm sure he did." Soo-yeon's smile didn't falter, but her eyes hardened. "I look forward to getting to know you better, Mrs. Kang. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time together. After all, I spend so much time with your husband. Working closely. Very closely. I'm sure you do. But I'm also sure Jaewon knows exactly where his priorities lie now. Don't you, darling?" She turned to Jaewon, putting a hand on his chest in a deliberately possessive gesture. His hand covered hers immediately, and he looked at Soo-yeon with an expression that made the other woman take a small step back. "My wife is correct," he said coolly. "My priorities have shifted. I trust you'll respect that, Soo-yeon." For a moment, something ugly flashed in Soo-yeon's eyes. Then she smiled again, smooth and cold, and inclined her head. "Of course. Congratulations again. I wish you both every happiness." She drifted away, and Vanessa let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "She's going to be a problem. I'll handle her." "No." Vanessa turned to face him, something fierce rising in her chest. "If I'm going to survive in your world, I need to fight my own battles. She's my problem now." Jaewon looked at her for a long moment, something like admiration flickering in his eyes. "Very well. But if you need backup, you'll be the first to know. Right after I've already handled it." He laughed then, a genuine, startled sound that drew glances from around the room. "You're going to be trouble, aren't you? The best kind." The weeks that followed were a crash course in a world Vanessa had never imagined. She learned the names of the families that allied with Jaewon and those that opposed him. She learned to read the subtle signals of respect and threat that passed between the powerful. She learned to walk into a room like she belonged there, even when every nerve in her body screamed that she was an imposter. She also learned the rhythms of living with Kang Jaewon. He was an early riser, often already in his office by the time she woke up. He took his coffee black and his meetings bloody, from what she could gather from the hushed conversations she sometimes overheard. He was brutal when he needed to be. She saw the blood on his knuckles when he came home late at night, heard the muffled conversations about rivals eliminated and territories claimed. But he was also kind in ways that surprised her. He remembered that she liked her coffee with exactly 2 spoonfuls of sugar and a splash of cream. He brought home books he thought she might enjoy, first Korean books to help her learn the language, then novels and poetry and collections of African literature that made her cry with homesickness and joy. He sat with her through her morning sickness, holding her hair back and bringing her crackers and ginger tea without being asked. "You don't have to do this," she told him one evening when he was rubbing her swollen feet after a long day of public appearances. They had been to 3 events, a charity gala, a business luncheon, and a private dinner with one of Jaewon's allies, and her feet were screaming in protest. "The contract doesn't require foot massages," she continued, groaning as his thumbs found a particularly tight knot. "The contract doesn't require a lot of things I do," he replied without looking up. "I do them because I want to." "Why?" His hands stilled on her feet. He looked up at her, and in the dim light of the living room, his face was open in a way she rarely saw. The mask he wore for the world was gone, leaving something raw and vulnerable in its place. "Because you're the first person in a long time who sees me as a man, not a monster. Because when you look at me, I feel like I might deserve something good." Because he stopped himself, shaking his head. "Never mind. It doesn't matter." Vanessa sat up, pulling her feet from his grasp and moving closer to him on the couch. She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. His skin was warm under her palms, his stubble rough against her fingers. "It matters," she said softly. "Everything you do matters to me. Every cup of tea you bring me. Every book you leave on my nightstand. Every time you hold my hair while I'm sick. It all matters, J1. His eyes searched hers, looking for something she wasn't sure she understood. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. I know how to run an empire. I know how to inspire fear. But this, caring about someone, wanting to be better for them, I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. But we can figure it out together. The kiss that followed was different from their first. It was slow and searching, a question rather than a demand. Vanessa felt herself melting into him, her body aching with a need she had tried so hard to suppress since their wedding night. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. We said we wouldn't, J1 murmured, his forehead pressed against hers. Not unless you asked. I'm asking. He pulled back slightly, searching her face with an intensity that made her shiver. Are you sure? Once we cross this line. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want you, J1. Not because of any contract or arrangement. Because I want you. He lifted her then, carrying her toward the bedroom with a gentleness that made her heart ache. And when he laid her on the bed, when he pressed his body against hers and whispered her name like a prayer, Vanessa finally understood what it felt like to fall completely, irrevocably, in love. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the sheets, Vanessa's head on J1's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. His hand traced lazy patterns on her bare back, and she felt more at peace than she had in years. Tell me something about yourself, she said quietly. Something no one else knows. J1 was silent for a moment. Then he said, I wanted to be a musician. Before everything. Before my mother died and I had to become what I am. I used to dream about concert halls and applause, about making people feel things with music instead of fear. Vanessa lifted her head to look at him, seeing the boy he might have been underneath the man he'd become. Play for me tomorrow? You promised. I keep my promises. Always. I'm starting to believe that. She laid her head back on his chest and closed her eyes, falling asleep to the rhythm of his heartbeat, feeling safe for the first time in longer than she could remember. But peace, as Vanessa would soon learn, was never permanent in J1's world. The trouble came 3 months into their marriage, on the night of the annual gathering of the city's underground powers. Vanessa was 6 months pregnant now, her belly round and full beneath the elegant black gown J1 had chosen for her. She had learned so much since their wedding day, had grown so much stronger, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. They were in the middle of the gala, Vanessa chatting with the wife of one of J1's allies while he conducted business across the room, when the doors burst open and a man strode in, flanked by armed guards. He was older than J1, with silver streaks in his dark hair and eyes that held nothing but cold calculation. The room fell silent. Even J1 went still, his hand tightening on his glass so hard she thought it might shatter. Father, he said, his voice flat and dangerous. Vanessa's blood ran cold. J1's father. The man who had built the empire his son now controlled. The man who had disappeared 5 years ago after a power struggle that had left dozens dead. The man everyone believed was dead. Did you think you could hide her from me forever, son? The older man's gaze landed on Vanessa, and she felt it like a physical blow, cold, assessing, dismissive. A foreigner. A cleaner. Carrying a bastard that isn't even yours. And you've made her the queen of my kingdom. Your kingdom. J1 stepped forward, positioning himself between Vanessa and his father. You abandoned this organization. You ran like a coward when the tide turned against you. Everything I've built without you. Every alliance, every territory, every ounce of respect we command, I earned it. Not you. Everything you have because of me. My name, my legacy, my blood. The older man smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Vanessa had ever seen, colder than winter, sharper than any blade. But I'm here to take it back now. Starting with eliminating the weakness you've introduced. His gaze flicked to Vanessa's stomach, and she understood with horrifying clarity. He wasn't just here to reclaim his power. He was here to destroy her and her child. Touch her, J1 said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper that made even his own men flinch, and I will end you. Father or not, blood or not, I will tear you apart with my bare hands and feel nothing but satisfaction. You always were sentimental. Your mother's influence, no doubt. It's why you'll never be as strong as me. Something dangerous flashed in Jaewon's eyes at the mention of his mother. Don't you dare speak of her. You don't have the right. Not after what you did. What I did was survive. What I did was build an empire that ungrateful children now think belongs to them. But I'm here to correct that mistake. The tension in the room was suffocating. Vanessa could see hands moving toward weapons, could feel the balance of power teetering on a knife's edge. Half the room looked ready to follow Jaewon's father, old loyalties surfacing after years of dormancy. The other half stood firmly behind Jaewon, their faces set with determination. Vanessa knew she should stay quiet, stay invisible, stay safe behind her husband. But something fierce and protective rose up in her for herself, for her unborn child, for the man who had given her everything. She stepped forward, moving to stand beside Jaewon rather than behind him. You talk about weakness, she said, her voice clear and steady despite her pounding heart, but you're the one who ran. You're the one who hid for 5 years while your son bled to protect everything you abandoned. You're the one who skulked in the shadows while he built something stronger than you ever could. If anyone's weak here, it's you. You're an old man clinging to a past that's already forgotten you. The room went completely still. No one spoke to Kang Sr. that way. His face contorted with rage. You dare. I dare. Vanessa placed a protective hand on her belly. This child will grow up in a world you can't touch. Protected by people who are actually loyal. Raised by a father who knows what love means. And you? You'll be nothing but a cautionary tale we tell at bedtime. Kill her, Kang Sr. snarled at his guards. Kill her now. The room erupted. Someone shouted. Guns were drawn. And in the chaos that followed, Vanessa felt Jaewon grab her, pulling her toward a side exit while his men formed a protective barrier around them. She heard gunshots behind her, screams, the sounds of violence that would haunt her dreams for years to come. But she also felt Jaewon's hand in hers, steady and strong, and she knew that whatever happened next, they would face it together. If you're still here, you're a real one. Drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and don't forget to like and share this video. They made it to a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a nondescript building that hid a fortress beneath its ordinary exterior. Vanessa's heart was racing, her hands pressed protectively over her belly, but she was alive. They were both alive. He won't stop, Jaewon said, pacing the small room like a caged tiger. His jacket was torn, there was blood on his shirt, she wasn't sure if it was his or someone else's, and his eyes were wild with fury and fear. My father never stops. He'll come for us again and again until we stop him first. Jaewon stopped pacing, staring at her. You don't know what you're suggesting. I know exactly what I'm suggesting. Vanessa rose from the chair, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward, but her determination making it powerful. She moved to stand in front of him, taking his face in her hands. I didn't survive this long by being helpless, Jaewon. I didn't fight my way out of poverty and loss and 1,000 small cruelties just to let some old man with a grudge destroy everything. Your father wants war? Fine. We give him war. But we do it on our terms, with our rules, and we end it once and for all. You're pregnant, Vanessa. You should be resting, not plotting war strategies. I'm pregnant, not incapable. This baby is going to come into the world one way or another. I'd rather it be a world where their grandfather isn't trying to kill us all. Despite everything, Jaewon let out a choked laugh. How are you making jokes right now? It's either laugh or cry, and crying makes my face puffy. She stroked his cheek, her thumb wiping away a smear of blood. We're in this together, remember? You promised. 1 year. Well, we're not even halfway through, and you're already trying to handle everything alone. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me by letting me help. By trusting me. By treating me like your partner, not your prisoner. She took his hands and placed them on her belly, where the baby was kicking as if to emphasize her point. This child is going to grow up knowing strength comes in many forms. Let them see their parents fighting side by side. Jaewon was quiet for a long moment, his hands warm on her belly, his eyes fixed on the movement beneath her skin. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. How did I ever think I could let you go after a year? You're not getting rid of me now. We're in this together. Till death or divorce, right? No divorce, he said firmly. Not ever. You're stuck with me, Vanessa Kang. Vanessa Kong. She tested the name on her tongue. I like the sound of that. Good. Because you'll be hearing it for the rest of your life. The war that followed was brutal and bloody, fought in shadows and whispers as much as an open conflict. Jaewon's father had allies, remnants of the old guard who remembered his reign with fear and loyalty. But Jaewon had something his father never had, people who followed him because they believed in him, not because they feared him. And he had Vanessa. She became an unexpected strategist, her outsider's perspective revealing weaknesses and opportunities that those too close to the conflict couldn't see. She built alliances with the wives and mistresses of powerful men, creating a network of information that proved invaluable. She stood beside Jaewon in meetings and negotiations, her presence a reminder that he was fighting for something beyond power. Even Soo-yeon, who had watched Vanessa with barely concealed hostility for months, began to show grudging respect. "You're not what I expected," Soo-yeon admitted one night when they were poring over intelligence reports together. Jaewon was in another meeting, and the two women had been thrown together by necessity. What did you expect? A gold digger. A fool who got lucky. Someone who would crack under the pressure and run back to whatever hole she crawled out of. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. And instead, you're formidable. Soo-yeon said the word like it physically pained her. You've adapted faster than anyone I've ever seen. You've earned the respect of people who don't give it easily. And you've made Jaewon happy. I didn't think that was possible. He deserves happiness. He does. Soo-yeon looked away. I wanted to give him that. I thought I could. But he never looked at me the way he looks at you. Not even close. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's not your fault I fell for a man who couldn't love me back. She stood, gathering the reports. For what it's worth, I don't hate you anymore. I might even respect you. A little. Don't let it go to your head. I wouldn't dream of it. But the pregnancy was taking its toll. The stress and danger weighed heavily on Vanessa's body, and as her due date approached, the doctors grew increasingly concerned. She tried to hide her exhaustion from Jaewon, but he saw everything, noticed everything, just as he'd said he would. You need rest, he insisted one night, finding her still awake at 2 a.m, reviewing reports. I need to help. There's a gap in his eastern defenses that we could. Vanessa. He knelt before her chair, taking her hands. The baby. You. That's what matters most. Everything else can wait. Everything else is trying to kill us. And we'll handle it. But not if you collapse from exhaustion first. She wanted to argue, but a sudden pain lanced through her abdomen, making her gasp. Jaewon's face went white. What is it? What's wrong? Another pain, sharper this time. I think something's wrong. The next hours were a blur of fear and chaos. They rushed to a private hospital, one Jaewon's organization controlled, where doctors swarmed around Vanessa with urgent efficiency. The baby was coming too early, and there were complications. Jaewon held her hand through the whole thing, his face ashen but his grip steady. He whispered to her in Korean and English, telling her she was strong, she was brave, she was everything. And when dawn broke, after a night that felt like an eternity, Vanessa was holding a tiny, perfect girl with her mother's eyes and a surprisingly strong grip on her father's finger. She's a fighter, Jaewon said, his voice thick with emotion as he gazed at their daughter. Like her mother. She has to be, Vanessa replied, exhausted but radiant with joy. She's being born into a war. Not for long. Jaewon's expression hardened with determination, the CEO returning to the surface. I'm ending this. Tonight. Jaewon, you need to rest too. You've been up all night. I won't let our daughter grow up in a battlefield. I won't let her know fear before she knows love. This ends now. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, pouring everything he felt into that single moment of connection. And when he pulled away, she saw the goodbye in his eyes. Come back to me, she said fiercely, gripping his hand. Promise me, Jaewon. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. The confrontation happened at the same compound where Jaewon's father had first seized power decades ago. It was fitting, Jaewon thought, that it should end where it all began. The building loomed against the night sky, full of memories and ghosts and blood-stained history. His father was waiting for him, surrounded by the last of his loyalists, his face twisted with contempt. He looked older than he had at the gala, diminished somehow, like a king watching his kingdom crumble. You came alone, the older man observed. Sentimental and stupid, as always. I came to offer you one chance, Jaewon replied, his voice steady and cold. Walk away. Leave this city, this country. Never contact me or my family again. And I'll let you live. His father laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed through the empty halls. You always were weak. Your mother made you weak. That foreign whore you married made you weaker. And now you've bred another generation of weakness. He never finished the sentence. Jaewon moved faster than thought, faster than his father could react, years of training and rage culminating in a single, decisive strike. When it was over, the old man lay bleeding on the floor, his empire crumbling around him. The loyalists who remained looked at Jaewon with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. One by one, they lowered their weapons. It's over, Jaewon said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. The old ways are finished. Those who want to continue with me under new rules are welcome. Those who don't, leave now and never return. Most of them stayed. When Jaewon returned to the hospital room, the sun was rising over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Vanessa was waiting, their daughter cradled against her chest, her eyes fixed on the door with desperate hope. She looked up when he entered, her eyes searching his face for injury, for pain, for goodbye. Whatever she saw there made her exhale in relief, tears streaming down her cheeks. It's done, she whispered. It's done. He crossed the room in 3 strides, gathering both of them into his arms. It's over. We're safe. All of us. You're hurt, she noticed, touching a gash on his arm that he'd barely registered. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Let me. Later. He silenced her with a kiss, gentle this time, reverent. Right now, I just want to hold my family. Vanessa leaned into him, their daughter peaceful between them, and for the first time in months, she felt the weight of fear lift from her shoulders. They had survived. Against all odds, against all enemies, they had survived. We need to name her, she said quietly. What about Minna? Jaewon suggested. It means wisdom and beauty in Korean. Minna, Vanessa repeated, looking down at their daughter. And her middle name will be Ada. It was my mother's name. It means first daughter in my language. Minna Ada Kong. Jaewon smiled, the expression transforming his face. Perfect. Just like her mother. 1 year later, Vanessa stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sun set over Seoul. The city stretched out below her, a maze of lights and shadows, but she no longer feared the shadows. She knew them now. She ruled them, alongside the man who had turned her life upside down with a pregnancy test and an impossible proposal. She's asleep, Jaewon said, joining her on the balcony. Finally. Only took 5 stories, 3 songs, and a detailed negotiation about tomorrow's breakfast menu. She's a tough negotiator. Takes after her father. Her mother, you mean. I've seen you in action with the alliance leaders. They're all terrified of you. Vanessa laughed, leaning into him as his arms wrapped around her from behind. Hard to believe it's been a year. Our contract is up, he reminded her quietly. You can leave if you want. I'll keep my promise. Safety, security, everything you need for you and Minna. Vanessa turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had become her home, her partner, her everything. Is that what you want? For me to leave? You know what I want. His voice was rough with emotion. I want you to stay. I want to spend every day of the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice. I want to grow old with you, to raise our daughter together, to maybe give her siblings someday. I want everything, Vanessa. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. But only if you want it too. She answered him with a kiss that said everything words couldn't. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining with tears and joy. I choose you, she said simply. Today and every day after. I choose this life, this family, this love. I choose us. Jaewon lifted her off her feet, spinning her around on the balcony while she laughed and clung to him. They had been through fire and emerged forged into something stronger than either of them could have been alone. They had found love in the most impossible circumstances. They had built a family from chaos and danger. I love you, he said, setting her down but keeping her close. I don't think I've said it enough. I love you, Vanessa. I love our daughter. I love the life we've built. I love everything you've made me become. I love you too, J1. The good, the bad, the terrifying. All of it. All of you. They stood together as the last rays of sunlight faded, their future stretching before them, challenging, beautiful theirs. But as they held each other under the stars, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows across the street. Soo-yeon had been patient, nursing her wounded pride and her secret plans. She had played the loyal ally, the reformed rival, the trusted advisor. But underneath, the old ambitions still burned. And now she had new allies, dangerous ones from across the ocean, who shared her desire to see Kang J1 destroyed. She lifted her phone and sent a single message, Phase 1 complete. The wife trusts me. Ready to proceed. The reply came instantly, good. We move in 3 months. Make sure the child is accessible. Soo-yeon smiled, cold and sharp, and disappeared into the night. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. And if you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Drop a comment telling me if you want a part 2 and share this with anyone who loves a good drama. Until next time, stay tuned for more incredible stories only here on Afrosoul Tales.